Aurelia is an A-rank Psyche main DPS who specializes in AoE scenarios and more importantly is also free to obtain, today. She can also fly, jump higher than usual, ride her jellyfish across water at no stamina cost, and while her kit in itself is rather simple, playing her effectively is not as much. Welcome, I am Rivyn Elowen, but you may call me Rivy, and this is your complete guide to Awakens' old friend Aurelia. Aurelia features a 4-part basic attack, and outside of doing what we expect basic attacks to do, we don't want to actually use them, well, most of the time that is. She also features a critical riposte, which does exactly what we expect it to do as well, and this one we will actually use, but more importantly, holding her dodge will have her ride her jellyfish at increased speed, shooting a lot of jellyfish at nearby targets at a high frequency at the cost of 5 stamina per second, and while in this state, she can perform a special dodge enhancing her critical riposte with 4 jellyfish projectiles. It is important to note that this dodge is not performed automatically. You will still need to actively dodge, and upon doing so, said 4 jellyfish projectiles will be shot. You can then still follow up with your normal critical riposte afterwards. Because of the high frequency these jellyfish are shot at during her ride and her regular basic attacks multipliers being rather lackluster, Aurelia's gameplay revolves around riding her jellyfish and triggering both her special dodge and dodge counter effectively, all while managing your stamina. The latter is important as she cannot enter her special state if your stamina is below 40. Lastly, as for her basics, she also has a plunge attack that we will not use. Her skill is on a 15-second cooldown, deals some small damage in an AoE, and has Aurelia enter the cadenza state for 12 seconds. During this state, all of Aurelia's jellyfish blasts will deal 70% increased damage. Aurelia's ultimate deals 6 instances of damage in a large AoE, pulls together enemies at the cost of 120 energy and on a 15-second cooldown, but outside of this there also is not really much more to it. Her support skill also does nothing remarkable, but we will use it for the Stain Esper cycle. Her first passive enhances Nova, dealing an additional 150% attack psyche damage upon expiry. This passive requires Daffodil as of the game's release, as we need Chaos to trigger Nova in the first place. However, this passive is also not very strong, and I would much rather run another team, but more on that later. Lastly, her second passive grants her 1% attack for 5 seconds when her jellyfish hit a target, capping out at 10 stacks, and because all of her attacks involve jellyfish somewhere, this might as well just be phrased as increases attack by 10% with a short ramp-up time. Nearly all of her damage comes from her critical riposte or basics, and because that is the same skill, she is surprisingly cheap in terms of investment. Focus first and foremost on her free damage gains, namely her passive 1 and 2, then her basics, followed by her ultimate. Lastly, we can level her support skill and skill, as the damage boost from her skill does not actually increase with the skill levels. Aurelia's playstyle is pretty unique, and albeit not very difficult in theory, I found it not very practical, primarily due to the rather long wind-up time of her held dodge. We cast her skill on cooldown, then hold dodge to enter her riding state. Upon being attacked, we press dodge, then basic to follow up with her normal critical riposte, and lastly hold dodge again to re-enter her state. Rinse and repeat. If her ultimate is ready, well, we press it. Her Awakening 1 grants her 15% crit rate during her state, and because we will be in said state nearly all the time anyway, this is a very good awakening. This also plays nicely in tandem with her A2, which automatically enters her cadenza state after a critical dodge or her support skill, or it also extends the duration of it if it already is active. This awakening simply allows her to always be within said state. Her A3 is a 20% damage bonus for her ultimate while in her state, and her A5 grants her ultimate 15% additional crit rate. Her A4 grants her defense for some reason, so this one doesn't matter. And her A6 increases the maximum stacks of her second passive to 20, gaining 10 stacks immediately upon casting her skill. Overall, her awakenings are actually not that bad. Well, outside her A4, that is. I would recommend to select her A1 first and foremost, then her A6 and A2 for the quality of life, and then her A3 and A5, and lastly her A4. Her first resonance effect increases her skill levels, and her R6 grants the team an 8% psyche damage bonus, which means primarily for herself unless paired with Heniel or Fadia. Aurelia comes with her own S-rank signature, Stellar Veil, which we obtained for free in 7 days as of this video's release. It is however not her best in slot and beaten out by Nanali's signature, Ready Ready. The difference is not that big however, especially as copies of her own signature are easier to obtain over time than Nanali's are, and at least at A6 an M3 Stellar Veil will beat out an M1 Ready Ready. Devil's Blood Curse is her best in slot choice, at least that is assuming Haether in the team, as we really want a good uptime on that Stain. Without Haether and hence Stain, both Lost Radiance and Shadow Creed can be even up or possibly even beat it out despite having a worse build path. Aurelia has a lot of damage bonus in her kit, and so crit rate is by far her best main stat. I would not recommend any other main stat, but if you had to choose one, attack percent would be up next. Most of the time, you will run Devil's Blood Curse, which you can also just share with Heniel, unless you run them in the same team, that is. If you decide to run Lost Radiance, however, this will be your layout, and if you run Shadow Creed instead, you can aim for this one. As for substats, focus first and foremost on crit values, then attack percent, and lastly damage bonus. This doesn't really change at Awakening 6 either, but you gain more team damage from it due to her now higher team damage contribution. The, in my opinion, best team for Aurelia is with Haether, MC, and Ji Yuan. Haether provides access to Stain, and both of them can profit off it nicely. MC provides constant access to either Remora or Blossom, and Ji Yuan provides Blossom, which not only helps in triggering charge to energy battery either of Aurelia or Haether, but also simply functions as off-field damage. With Haether, MC, and Ji Yuan all only requiring minimal field time, this team plays nicely and can do super well even without a buffer. If you prefer to buff your Aurelia however, or simply don't have Ji Yuan, Heniel can take the spot of Ji Yuan here. A team with Daffodil instead of either Ji Yuan or Heniel will work as well, providing access to Nova, which works great in combination with Heniel. Haether is still present for the purpose of providing access to Stain as well as large chunks of burst damage, and either MC or Heniel will do well in the third slot. I personally would prefer Heniel here as opposed to MC, as Remora is kind of useless of Nest per cycle unless you can trigger charge, but Haether's support skill generates a large amount of ultimate energy, so MC can work as a pseudo battery for her in this case. A team of Aurelia, Daffodil, Sakedi or Adler and Haether can work as well, with a Sakedi or Adler functioning as a generic buffer or debuffer in the case of Adler, with a Daffodil providing access to Scorch as well as Discord and her passive, albeit I much prefer the charge-based teams as the additional ultimate energy from it massively benefits both Haether and Aurelia. Aurelia is first of all free, and so is her signature weapon that will be available on day 10 for free as well. As of her release, she is the only Psyche main DPS in the game, and she has a rather straightforward build path as well. Her playstyle is simple and pretty unique, but because it takes some time to get used to it, she might not be the easiest character to pick up. On the other hand, her awakenings give her a much needed damage increase, and her teams are also rather limited as well, at least as of right now. And with that, we are at the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, leave me a comment on your thoughts about Aurelia, and join the Discord. A special thanks to my YouTube and Patreon members who make this content possible. I appreciate all of you and wish you a great day. Peace!